Okay, this is construction technology, and we're going to be doing Unit 11, Sustainability in Construction, and it was a paper taken on the 22nd of May in 2017. And I'm going to go through the whole paper with you and try and help you get the maximum marks from your revision. Okay, good luck with you guys. Just going to adjust the light, so yeah, that's good. And let's have a go. Right, I've got a paper here I've completed beforehand, so I can double check answers and question perhaps as we go through. Right, so the questions are very clear. You have to put a simple cross on some of them. Some of them are written, obviously text, and of course the spellings are important, and your accuracy in how you answer is also going to be vital. Okay, you have an hour on this paper. I think it was an hour. No, an hour and 15 minutes, but sometimes they're just an hour, so be careful of that, and perhaps have a watch ready so you can keep an eye on time. Check your answers as you go. Question 1, and it says, identify, that means point out, 2 benefits of designing in a sustainable way. Sustainable is a word used to show whether something can be kept going forever or reused in some way forever without damaging the planet. Okay, whether it can be done forever. So, identify 2 benefits of designing in a sustainable way, and the answer probably, let's have a look, inclusion of green spaces. Yeah, that's a sustainable type of thing, I suppose. Run-down locations are produced, possibly, but I'm not sure about that one. And then we've got waste is sent to landfill. That's not sustainable, definitely not. Habitats are destroyed. That's extremely unsustainable. Nice places to live are built. Yes, I think that's a very positive answer. So I'd put a cross here and a cross at the top. Inclusion of green spaces, because it's something we should be doing, and it is a sustainable way of living. Next question, number 2. Give one way that construction may lead to the depletion, that's the reduction, of finite resources. And a finite resource is a resource usually found in the ground that we cannot carry on using without it actually running out, such as coal or oil or clay or sand. So let's put a sensible answer. So we mustn't continue to use stone or metal. I put stones, metals, and hardwoods. Hardwoods take a long time to grow and therefore are not sustainable to be used. Okay, hopefully that helps that answer for you. Identify 2 economic, that's to do with financial profit and loss type situations. Identify 2 economic benefits to think about when planning a construction site. Well, let's have a look at this. Accident reporting. Yes, it's important, very important, but it's the planning of construction. So, you know, you hope that would be something that would be automatically planned. So let's have a look at the other ones. Environmental impact. I think that's very important, but we're looking at economic, so it's a monetary thing. Employment opportunities. Well, that's definitely about money. Yes, so that's possible. Financial return. Well, there's a clue. Economic and financial go hand in hand. Naturally occurring products, nothing to do with it. So I think the most logical answers would be this one and this one. Employment opportunities for local areas and the financial return. Okay, good. Okay, moving on to question 4. Give 2 benefits of using locally sourced materials. So locally sourced means it's been taken from areas local to the site. Okay, So, two benefits of using a locally, benefits, that's a positive. Okay, of locally sourced. So you're using less fuel, oil in transport. So the lorries that are carrying your supplies are not having to go as far. So using less fuel, that's important. And I say fuel oil because it could be petrol or diesel. But it could be energy and electric source, couldn't it, if it's an electric run vehicle. Reduced embodied energy. Now, that's an interesting one. I'm going to put that as a reduced embodied energy. And I say that because if you're actually using less energy in actually moving a material, there's less embodied energy in that material itself, because you're actually having to not transport it as far. Also, there's other things, you get less time. Things can be done more quickly because it's nearer. And it's also good for employment. Good for employment. So these are other positives. So these are all benefits. Okay, positives. Okay, 5. State one benefit to residents, they're people living locally, of designing a new development with low density of housing. Now, a low density means there's less of them per hectare or per acre. High density would mean the reverse. So less, so I suppose in effect everything's less. So you have less cars or traffic. You have less pollution. Because obviously less energy is being burned, fuel. You have less noise being produced. You have greater green spaces because there's less houses between them. So you can have larger gardens, stroke garden areas. All positive things. Moving on. 6. Identify 2 sustainable site practices that minimise the effect, that means reduce the effect on physical environment. So things that minimise the effect on the actual physical environment, the actual environment itself. So let's think. Quite a difficult question to get around, I suppose. Identify 2 sustainable site practices. So, okay, let's. Erection of site accommodation. Does that minimise practices in this sense? I don't think so. Segregation of waste. That's a really positive thing. Yes, that does impact and minimise the effect on the physical environment because there's less waste going in the ground. That's a definite. Protective fences and trees. Yes, possibility because you're protecting the local habitat. Combined drainage system. That also protects the environment. And construction health and safety plan. Not really, that's to do with the actual workers on site. Well, this is an interesting one. As a site practice, I would actually be tempted to do this one because you're protecting the trees, so your minimum physical damage, yes. But you could say combined drainage system is also part of it, so possibly those 2 as well. Okay. Give 2 ways to improve the efficiency of a domestic heating system. Domestic, that's the heating system that we all live in. Domestic, those places we live in. And your heating system, gas or electricity. And it's question 7, they're saying 2 ways to improve it, the efficiency, to make it more effective. Okay? Well, I would suggest the things you put on radiators, they're called thermostats. Thermostatic controls on radiators, and they automatically work to control the temperature. You could put the boiler, place boiler, it could be gas or electricity, on the eco setting, so it's not running too hot all the time. You could use a timer, or a timer could be used. Or even better still, insulate all pipes from the cold. Okay, those pipes perhaps running through the ceiling or the floors where they can get cold. Insulate them with insulated rubber. Okay, moving on. Okay, so it says here, temporary surface water drainage is going to be installed on a construction site that has sandy soil conditions. Explain one way the temporary drains, temporary, that means they don't last forever, they're not there forever, can be constructed to prevent the drains from blocking. Okay, quite a difficult question this. I would put something like this. Place a filter over the drain cover, and it's the inlet cover inlet, so you're not blocking the drain. Stop the leaves perhaps building up. Okay, and this one could be also answered by saying clear away all drains from leaves. Yeah, leaves. Okay, I think there would be sensible answers to prevent drains from blocking. Okay, so you sweep the drive regularly, but also put filters and grids to stop the inlet becoming blocked. So 5, one method of providing natural ventilation to buildings is to use windows that open. Okay, common sense. State 2 other ways of providing natural ventilation to buildings. So natural is obviously the wind coming or the air coming in without it being fed through an electric fan or anything like that. So I would suggest you can get what we call air bricks, bricks with holes in, ventilation, air brick ventilation, and you can actually have tubes in the walls called natural stack ventilation, and they're literally like almost they're like chimneys within walls that allow the air to run around the house passively or get into the house passively. And passive means it's without assistance of an electric pump in some way. Okay, passive. Okay, as opposed to active, which would mean it's powered in some way. Okay, like passive and active speakers, different concept, but the words being used in that sense. Okay, so passive would mean it does it on its own without any assistance from any other types of energy. Good. So you couldn't put air conditioning, because air conditioning obviously relies on electricity. Right, so do read the question very carefully. State 2 characteristics of solar hot water panels. 2 features is another word for characteristics of solar, that's the sun, hot water panels. Okay, now lots of houses have these now, and you can even get them in tile forms. Okay, so 2 characteristics or features of solar panels, and they should face the south, because the south is where the sun is on the building most of the time. south. Yeah. Side, you could put, really important, south side. They are usually black. They are usually black, so they absorb heat, and external to earth and external to the roof. Sorry about my handwriting. They're not very aesthetic, okay? So you could put that as a point, because it just says characteristics. So features, well, they're not very good to look at. But I think they're looking at sort of the general nature of them. So they're black, usually external, and they're south-facing, okay? State the ideal, here we go, it's repeating it a little bit here. State the ideal direction in which solar hot water panels should face. Okay, ideally, south facing. And something like, it's usually a 15-degree angle to allow rain water to flow off. Okay. This question, state one way solar hot water panels help sustainability. How does solar hot water panels help support the damage to the planet? How do they stop the damage to the planet, in a sense? Well, let's put this down. They use renewable, that's the word, renewable energy. And renewable energy, e.g. the sun. Really important, that. And they save the use of fossil fuels. They save the use of fossil fuels. Oh, well done, that'd be a good answer. Okay, moving on to the question 11. Identify two sustainable timber-based, made from wood-based products. Okay, well, let's have a look. Glass reinforced panel, definitely not. Foam board, no, that would be a polyurethane or something similar, so it's a plastic-based one. Cedar boarding, cedar is definitely a softwood. Okay, that's a wood. Cedar, a softwood, and it's actually a fast-growing softwood. Okay, it's a soft wood. So it's that one. Engineered joist. Not sure about that. Aerated blocks. Well, that's a cement base. That's made from cement. That's probably not that one. Engineered joists can be made from wood, and joists, as you know, hold up floors. Okay. And they can be made from layers of wood. So let's have a look at one quickly. Here can be an engineered joist. You have a piece of timber here. Another piece of timber here. This is several meters long, of course. There's your timber. And in between, you could have more timber, but thinner timbers, like that. And the advantage of that, you've made it quite deep in section, quite deep. But if you use much less timber, okay, and it's engineered because it's been made by a process, e.g. factory made. Now, interestingly, I slowed down there a bit because these engineered joists are becoming actually more and more used on site, and you can see them. You can see them in school buildings as well, holding up the ceiling, the roofs. But it gives you a really strong, thick, heavy joist. Well, light joists actually to hold up a lot of stress and strain. Very good. Okay, perhaps go online and look at that as part of your revision. Okay, give 2 reasons why timber is a sustainable product. Now, this is a trick question to some degree. only soft wood is sustainable. There's an I there. As it is fast growing. Okay, it's really important. It's only softwood here because it's fast growing, not hardwood, not hardwood. Like an oak, they are not sustainable. But pine is. An example could be pine, yeah, or deal, or Douglas fir, yeah, fir. That's how people furs, not furs in fluffy fur. And another reason, okay, forgot fast growing. Give 2 reasons why timber is sustainable fast growing. Well, we've got the 2 points there. Okay. You are not. I could put you do not need to use any man-made glues or resins to make them, e.g. in MDF. This is a no-no because it's got resin in it, which is not good, or plywood. Layers of wood, but they're glued together with resins, and these are not sustainable. So that's a not sustainable. The resin, okay. But in a softwood, if you use it as a solid material, it's really sustainable. It's fast growing, and there's no use of any dangerous chemicals. Okay, let's move over from question 11 to obviously question 12. Okay, question 12, let's have a look. It says, a road sign that briefly lights up to warn drivers of a hazard ahead is to be installed in a rural location. Rural is countryside, okay? Countryside, okay? Okay, so let's have a look. The countryside, that's important, we'll look at that. Explain one way in which the road sign can be provided with a constant, reliable, without it going wrong, low maintenance electricity source, or source of electricity. Easy peasy, I think this one is. Use a solar panel with a rechargeable battery cell. This works at all times and is recharged during sunlight hours. Okay, recharge in sunlight hours. So even in a dull situation, these solar panels can be recharged. You'd be amazed what they can do, and that would be a good answer. Okay, and you can do it so it's obviously maintained, it's well insulated against dampness. Okay, you can do that as a plus. Yeah, stop the electrics getting damaged in some way. Okay, moving on to question 13. A developer, that's a builder in some way, is considering purchasing, that means buying, a former chemical factory, not a good idea, as a site for a housing development. Wow, so you're mixing somewhere that used to have lots of chemicals and possibly building a housing development. And we'll need to consider a variety of cost factors. Well, I bet he will, okay? It's not something that I'm sure many people would even consider because, of course, let's have a look at why. Explain 2 costs that the developer needs to think about when deciding how much to pay for the site. Right, he doesn't want to pay much for the site anyway, we know that. No developer would, but he's got to think about what was on site and what he's got to clear up, perhaps to make. So he's got to think about the demolition of the buildings that are already there. He's got to think about removal of waste. He's got to think about possible chemical waste too. Okay, let's put a comma there and a full stop. He may have to think about the removal of existing services, e.g. gas pipes, electricity cables, and all sorts of things, cables. Okay, and perhaps even water drainage. We'll put that, and water drainage channels. Yeah. So all these things he's going to have to think about removing. And actually, these sort of things to have to remove, waste possibly from chemical and contaminated land, is extremely expensive. So contaminated land. Yeah, exclamation mark. Big costs. Okay, well, I like that question actually. Yeah, look into demolition. Go online, have a look at some demolition. Now this is a case study. It looks at 2 buildings. It looks like, and you can't see it very well actually there, but this is a brick building. It's 2-storey. It's traditional build. It will have possibly concrete floors, but probably timber floors. It will have a timber cut roof using truss rafter fabrication. This is 3-storey, but it's pretty well similar fabrication. It's brick and block walls, a tarmacked area for the car parking, an uninteresting green space in front, not very organised, a little bit from the sort of, I suppose, the 1970s, possibly 80s. And then it's talking about it's going to be turned into a supermarket in some way. What else does it say? Let's go through it. Recently constructed local supermarket. The supermarket has been included in the new building development. The design development includes both residential, that's where people live, and commercial, that's the business premises. So it combines both. The supermarket building is a steel frame, constructed with solid first floors. That means solid, probably concrete. Rendered elevations. So rendering is the concrete that you tend to see on the outside of a building. It isn't actually a concrete. It's a mortar-based covering, cladding on top of usually block work. And an elevation is the front here. Any front of a building is an elevation, and it can be the side. It's a side view, I suppose, in that sense. And it has a synthetic slate roof. Now, synthetic is man-made. Synthetic, man-made. That's a good one to know. Made usually from oil. Not always, though. The front of the supermarket is glazed, obviously glass, has automatic doors. So it's a modern-ish building, isn't it? The developer has tried to make the building energy efficient, tried to make it lose less energy in the winter, less heat in effect, and reduce the amount of electricity used. So he's obviously put some sort of new lighting system in. Disposal of water from the site is part of the Sustainable Urban Drainage System called SUDS, Sustainable Urban Drainage System, and the acronym is SUDS. The area in front of the supermarket is landscaped. Well, is it really? Okay, it doesn't look very exciting. And provides a small green and open space. Small, very small. It is often windy across the green area to the front of the cell. I don't know whether that really matters. It's often windy. A cash point machine is provided. The supermarket is on the edge of a medium-sized town, so several 100,000 people. That would be. That's all. And in a residential area, that's where people obviously live. I mentioned that earlier. Now this one here is quite different. This is a bit more modern. Made in the last 10 years. It's on an edge of a town. It is near an important road junction. Provides access to the suburbs. That means areas outside the main town. It's being built on a brownfield site. That's a good thing. Doesn't say where that was built. Was it built on a greenfield site? Doesn't mention it. The roads around the shopping centre have become increasingly congested. That means they're becoming blocked with traffic. Busy, really, since it's open, and the traffic delays are causing traffic passing by the shopping centre and to the local traffic. It's causing problems. The centre itself has obviously been affected. The centre does have its own local bus route. Okay, that's interesting. The opening of the shopping centre has resulted in the closure of other shops. Well, it would do. If you open these big shopping centres, it tends to close the smaller shops in towns. It tends to have that effect. Because you're drawing, of course, customers away from towns, aren't you? Okay, so it talks about reduction of other shopping areas as a result of it. And causing it may have become run down areas of a local housing, because of this is taking all the profit, I suppose, away from it. The shopping centres also includes a doctor's surgery, lovely, dental practice, opticians, and a cinema and a bingo. Why not? And some restaurants and a coffee shop. Lots of things. So it's tried to include an awful lot here. The buildings have been built to current building regulations and include a range of sustainable, that word keeps coming up, practices. Okay, the surface water from the drainage system soaks away and is part of the sustainable urban drainage system. So they've both got that in some way, but this has been designed probably more inclusively than perhaps the first building we looked at. Okay, see, it's a newer development. I wouldn't say it looks any more attractive, but you know. The contractor that built the development was a member of the Considerate Constructors Scheme. Good for him, mate. That means they take in consideration lots of social factors as they build the actual construction. Okay, they limit noise and they limit dirt on the roads, and they think about how traffic should filter in and out of the construction site as it's being built. Obviously, after it's been built, there's been issues. Okay, but they're trying to be considerate towards the local people. So let's look at this. Got a range of questions on those two buildings, and these questions will be quite detailed. Let's have a look. Oh, perhaps they're not. Look, state one way in reducing the amount of mud being transferred. These words I use, transferred to local roads. I mean, how are you going to stop mud from getting onto the roads during the construction stage? Well, I mean, a lot of these questions are common sense, but you can have an on-site wheel wash, okay, stroke cleaning. Common sense, that's easy mark, that one. 15 here, give one way that the energy used by the internal lighting in building 1 can be minimised. Well, easily done. Use LED technology. Okay, you could use light tubes. Now look up that online. What are light tubes? Okay, they actually take the natural light from the roof all the way down to the actual rooms. Okay, worth looking to. You could use PIRs, passive infrared, passive infrared sensors. Okay, and they can control lights coming on and off. So if there's a movement, the light comes on. If there's no movement, after 50 minutes, the light goes off. Really good idea, those. Look into that, passive infrared. Sorry about my handwriting here. Okay, so I think we've answered that quite well. But the light tubes, have a look at those. Have a look online at light tubes. Now, question 16. Explain one reason why the automatic doors in Building 1 help sustainability. Well, it's obvious. This is it prevents heat loss. It's obviously it prevents heat loss in the winter, in the cold, because you can get cold in the summer. Plus, okay, plus it prevents heat gain in the heat. Okay, now people don't think of this, but it stops the heat of the summer days, if you like, entering into the building. And it could be 40 degrees outside some days, very hot days we've had, and the heat goes straight in the building, heating it up very quickly. Okay, 17. Explain one reason why the disposal of surface water from the site of Building 2 can be considered sustainable. All right, interesting question. One reason why the disposal, getting rid of surface water, this is water that comes from the rain and lands on the surface, the ground, can be water from the site can be considered sustainable. Okay, let's put that. Because the water is used in Building 2 to go into suds. Yeah. Because the suds retain water and they collect for a later date, okay, for watering. Okay, could be watering the plants, e.g. plant watering, yeah, except. Okay, next one. Explain one way the car park to Building 1 could be constructed, could be made to allow surface water to be disposed of without the use of road gullies, okay, or drainage channels. Okay, so what they're saying is, let's go back to that building if I can. There's the picture there, and it talks about Building 1. Right, okay. Small car park, but it's just a lump of tarmac, it looks like. And there's gullies and drainage channels around the outside. All gets wasted probably. Not all of it, but a lot of it does. Especially if it's a very sudden rain. Okay, how can it be? Explain one way that the car park to allow surface water to be disposed of on a site without the use of. Okay, so we could do this. You could use a soak away. Go online and have a look at soak aways under the ground. Okay, and what they have, you have the ground. Underneath the ground you'll have very big hole, perhaps 3 or 4 meters by 3 or 4 meters, and you fill it with massive rocks. Okay, massive rocks. Obviously an area where it's not affected by vehicles going nearby, or it won't cause any problems if it moves a little bit. And you have a sort of a mesh over the top. Yeah, a little mesh over the top. And that sits on top. And you have an inlet, you have a water pipe that feeds it from the road. And that's the inlet. And this is rocks. They can use sand or sand. And this is the earth around it, obviously. So this is underground. That's a symbol for earth. That sort of funny side hatching. This is all earth. And there's a flower growing, look. Little flower growing. Right, brilliant. Okay. You could use slopes, couldn't you, as well? Use slopes. Right. So rock, sand, stroke, gravel can be used. But look up that word, soak away, on the internet and see what you can find out. So question 18. It may ensure... Okay, yeah, I'm actually doing the answer first. Explain 2 ways the considerate contractors system scheme reduce the impact of construction projects on the local environment. Well, okay, it may ensure roads are clean. Roads are left clean and dry, not full of mud. So no mud. Yeah. It could have reduced noise levels, or it could be reduced dust levels. Lots of dust is produced by construction work. It could have reduced light levels. Noise, light, that's pretty obvious. The time reductions can be placed on working hours. Yeah, so less noise. So this links with these really well. Okay, brilliant. Getting through this paper really well, guys. I think I've answered that quite well. Left clean, yes, I think you could have access. Think about access. Is the access? I'm going to put a question mark there, and perhaps go online, look at different types of access to sites, construction sites, to make them more considerate to the local environment. Now, here we go. Lastly, this is the sort of an 8-mark question, and you need at least 6 or 7 points if you can on each part. Okay, you can cram it in one page. Often you have to go on to the next page though. Discuss the benefits and drawbacks, so the positives and the negatives. That's what I'm going to do. Of building 2 in terms of the social and economic. Social is about people. Okay, how people interact with construction and buildings and each other. And economics is about the money. Okay, so all about the money. And this is about the people. Okay, really. Okay, really important you know those differences. And it says discuss the positives and negatives of building 2 in terms of the people, and the money, entire side of sustainability of the town. And they've used these longer words, social and economic. Right, now this is a tricky question for a lot of students, and I've had a think about this. The other you could think about is the pros and cons, really, isn't it? So there's no one for that. It's pros and the cons. Okay? Well, this is a good thing. This is good for society. It brings new work, okay, to the area, A negative brings traffic, which is not good. So that's a negative, and that's a positive. And you could do it like this, couldn't you? or you could just put pros and cons. It encourages people to visit. Encourages people to visit. Now you need to explain if that's a good or a bad point, okay? But it's good. I mean, they spend money, don't they? Which is good. Spend money, which is a good thing. But people may not want lots of visitors because you've got traffic then problems. Traffic, question mark, okay? Okay, so moving on a little bit here. It has a dentist, which is good. Dentist. And it has a doctors. And an opticians. And a cinema. These are positive things, okay? Obviously you can put plus. Now let's have a look. It has SUDs, the use of sustainable urban drainage systems. SUDs are good for the environment. Okay, they're good for the environment. Okay, it gets rid of surface water. You can explain it. So I'm doing it in bullet points, but I would actually write a sentence for 4 marks. Let's put the use of a brownfield site means no new land is used. Brownfield land is used. This is positive. Okay, sorry about my Russian handwriting. Over a 10-year period, this has caused some noise. Okay. Problems over noise levels and traffic, we've mentioned before, is an issue. Okay, good. You could say the use of certain materials is not sustainable, e.g. UPVC, which is a plastics for windows. Okay, it doesn't mention it, but I think some assumptions you can make. It doesn't mention what they were made out of. Okay, and you could actually spend a long time on this question, go through the pros and cons. A good thing on a pro is the considerate construction practice. That's a good thing. Considerate construction practices have been used. Okay, that's a positive thing. So mention all these things. What other things does it bring, or negative or positive, and go through. You'll probably end up with another 3 or 4. Look at the materials they're using. Okay. It talks about building 2. So let's just briefly go back to building 2. Well, probably an awful lot of concrete has been used there. Doesn't mention it, but it doesn't mention that it wasn't made out of concrete. So but you could mention. We've talked about the plastic, possibly use of concrete. Question mark. We're not sure. Is not sustainable. Okay. Not sustainable. Concrete comes from finite resources like stone and they use gypsum, which is another material from the ground, and they use sand, and of course the cement powder. Very, very damaging to the planet using cement powder. The processing is extremely expensive, and it uses enormous amounts of heat. Enormous. Anyway, as a summary to that question, I hope that's really got you started. I know it's not perfect, but I know with a bit more time you could do some further research on that. At the moment I don't have any more time for that, but when you've done your summary points, you could write some further sentences on some of these points and make them a little bit deeper, extend the writing. Do use sketches if you can. Review all your questions as you go through. Underline the main points as you go through, really important, so you know your wording. Check your spellings, and try in some way to relax and enjoy doing the paper. If you've done sufficient revision, you'll find the paper will go really well. There'll always be questions you're not sure about, so perhaps go back to those later. But I think that's a really good start to Unit 11 revision. Okay, so thank you very much.